Don't you love that image of little rose gardens all over London, Ontario, and all over Ontario? Oh, it gives me goosebumps. And to hear that you were in the rose garden. This morning I had a similar experience when Sabina stood up here. I hadn't seen her since she was 8 years old, and my son was her children's class teacher. So this morning, I hope has been wonderful for all of you. It's certainly been enriching for me. Welcome to those of you on Zoom. I'm sorry you're not here in person, but you're with us in spirit. I'm going to reread the quote that we opened with this morning because it's just so perfect. The purpose for which mortal men have from utter nothingness stepped into the realm of being is that they may work for the betterment of the world and live together in concord and harmony. This morning, we learned about Baha'u'llah's vision for the world, and we consulted and shared about what this vision looks like as we try to bring it into our communities. This afternoon, we're going to step backwards to go forwards. We're going to be watching a film called Glimpses of 100 Years of Endeavour. It's a film that was commissioned by the international governing body of the Bahá'ís of the world called the Universal House of Justice. And this film looks back at the last 100 years of the development of the worldwide Baha'i community. And honestly, I can't think of a better introduction than Mark's video and Melanie's words, kind of expressing what this film is about. It shows examples from around the world of ways that people have sacrificed and loved and served for the betterment of humanity. I call this film a film about lovers of humanity, because that's what it feels like. This film isn't kind of like a show and tell, a pat yourself on the back, hey, we know what we're doing, we got this down kind of film. The film is a source of learning, of inspiration, and ultimately of hope for all of us, for all of humanity. This film tells us we can do it. And what I mean by that is it gives us assurance that our efforts to build communities based on this, centered on this idea of the oneness of humanity is possible, even in the face of great turmoil and hardship. And we can see how much, in the film we'll see how much has been learned in 100 years. But we'll see how it was just a small band of people at the beginning, and yet now look at what's, I mean, we can't see everyone because a lot of people are on Zoom, but look in London, Ontario. We can see the journey of what has led this community to its current efforts to contribute to the emergence of a world organized around the principle of the oneness of humanity. And this journey has been hard. Anyone who's conscious knows that these past 100 years have been filled with difficulty, and yet it has yielded fruit. And we know the journey forward is going to be hard. But again, we can be assured that when our hearts are inclined towards our Creator, towards the betterment of our collective well-being, towards the oneness of humanity, towards love, that we develop inner qualities and undreamt of capacities that we didn't know we had as we try to come together and serve our communities and consult and do everything that we were doing upstairs, trying to figure out how to illustrate an idea. How cool is that? In one room, there were 3 groups, and they were all doing something completely different, but they were all interesting, and they were all, gave birth to new ideas. The film dates back, the last thing I'll say, the film dates back to 1921, and that is the year that the son of Baha'u'llah, who was the prophet founder of the Baha'i faith, it was a year that he died. And he was known to Baha'is as Abdul Baha. It was his the name he chose, and it meant the servant of Baha, or the servant of the glory of God. And he is also known to Baha'is as an example of how, or the perfect exemplar of how to bring how to live spiritual teachings in day-to-day life in the face of everything that is going on. And he said, he called thraldom to the Blessed Perfection, who was his father, Baha'u'llah, his glorious and refulgent diadem, crown, and service to all the human race, his perpetual religion. When he was asked what it means to be a Baha'i, he replied that to be a Baha'i simply means to love all the world, to love humanity, and to try to serve it, to work for universal peace and universal brotherhood. So each one of us has a role in this process. Each one has a part. And no one is above another. We are all here together. And in that spirit, I hope you will take something away from this film that we're about to see. Now, I have a practical question. Did you get a sticky note from the usher? No. I will talk to the ushers, and they will pass around sticky notes at the end, because we're going to take 5 minutes to ask you if you'd be willing to write on that sticky note one thing that struck you while you watched this film about the spiritual and material spiritual and material progress. Just one thing that struck you. And then as you leave to go to your small groups, to leave it on that little blue board that's next to Hossein. Hossein, can you wave? Right there. And just put it down, then we can all look at what struck each of us. Thank you.